Minutes and then start.
Sir,
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from all parts of the world where you are joining today. I'm Parmesh Shah, the Global Lead for Data-Driven Digital Agriculture at the Agriculture and Food Global Practice at the World Bank. And I want to welcome you to the 60th edition of What is Cooking Digital Agriculture webinar series, where we invite innovators, startups, companies, data companies, technology companies, innovators, thought leaders, and also decision makers from the public sector and the governments who are promoting data-driven and digital agriculture approaches. Purpose of the series is to introduce new ideas, new innovations to the global ecosystem and ensure that there is a fluid learning platform where people learn from each other very rapidly and then develop collaboration around the ecosystem as we go forward. The World Bank is investing in a number of such programs over the world on data platforms and innovation ecosystems. And we are very delighted today to welcome TraceX for this edition of the webinar. As you know that the food and system is under threat quite a bit because of a lot of things which are happening. It was under threat even before COVID came in because of the climate and lots of other issues of supply chain. Consumers were not very happy that they were not able to know what kind of food they are consuming. And interestingly, during COVID, we find the interest among the consumers on knowing what they're eating increased considerably because they were concentrating on their food. And so similarly, all the companies which are investing in the agribusiness and also are very keen to know what's happening across their supply chain. But you know, the supply chain has been fragmented for a very long time. We don't have integrated kind of knowledge and transparency about how the food system performs. And so today's solution is very, very interesting for us. It brings the technology, it brings the transparency, food quality, traceability, lots of issues together. And since we are all that. So, but we also have an interesting, in terms of the user of the technologies, Nitin Gupta, who is Vice President of Olam Agro India Limited. We all know Olam. Olam, IFC, our sister organization, has invested in Olam. Also, it's one of the largest agribusinesses globally, working across 60 countries. And Nitin heads the Olam agro business in India and works on the rice business there. And he's going to tell us how they are using TraceX technology in Olam there. And I'll later on introduce my colleague Adam Strew, who is our global sector lead in IFC for agriculture inputs, and who will be the discussant today. So we have sort of about 35, 40 minutes for the presentation, and then Adam will come as a discussant. Just to let you know that this is a virtual format, so please mute your mics in order to have no disturbance there. But I would also encourage you to put your questions as the presenters are presenting in the chat. We will harvest and cluster questions at the end and then put them back so that your questions are taken on by the panel at the end. The proceedings are available today at the website of Digital Agriculture. Vivek is going to put the link there. It's also going to be available at the Open Learning Campus website, which has got 5,000 subscribers. So even the people who are not attending, we have seen that 4 times more users go to the Open Learning Campus website and see these webinars after that. And please go there. There are other 60 webinars there. It's a compendium of what's happening globally. If you want to know what's happening globally, it's a resource which is being used by all the people globally there. So please go and visit it. Today's proceedings, recordings, presentations will also be available there. So without further ado, then I would now like to hand over to the TraceX team. And I trust we have Srivatsa kicking us off. Over to you, Srivatsa.
Thank you, Parmesh, and the entire World Bank team for giving us this opportunity to be presenting to all of you. We're truly humbled with it. And of course, we do see a whole lot of participants. Thanks again for listening into us today. I will just quickly kick off the discussion with something which is very close to our hearts at TraceX, which is the genesis of TraceX itself. Right. So while currently we're in the business of digitizing the food and agriculture ecosystem, eventually with an objective of achieving a connected and a transparent and a traceable supply chain, that's the larger goal of the organization. But let's very quickly hear how did it all come together. So Anil and I, back in 2015, co-founded a company called Jiva Bhumi. Jiva Bhumi was our own self-discovery towards safe food. Both of us were very passionate gardeners. We still are, but get very little time to do that. So we both met in a common forum where the forum was talking about a safe food, good food that's good for planet, good for humans to consume. And when we started thinking about it, we realized that there is a huge gap between the supply and demand of safe food. Right. So on one side, the consumers are looking at safe food. On the other side, the farmers that are producing food without chemicals and pesticides are looking to the market linkages. And that was the idea which resulted in both Anil and I, co-founding Jiva Bhumi. But very interestingly, what happened within Jiva Bhumi was something that I'll relate back to what Parmesh said at the beginning of the this meeting, which is about digitization, which is about connected data-driven agriculture, so to say. While we were running Jiva Bhumi successfully, when we started scaling, we realized that we did not have enough data to make choices, to make decisions, because data was not really our data wasn't very easily available. Therefore, we didn't have the data to make decisions, which is when we started building a platform which would give us enough empowerment to analyze data and make critical decisions, which is the genesis of TraceX, which back then it wasn't named TraceX. So coming back to the point there, TraceX was developed as a platform from our own experience practicing agriculture in our earlier venture to solve our own problem of wanting to achieve connected supply chains. We wanted to know the suppliers of Jivabhoomi essentially. So the model there is, on one side, we're connecting the farmers directly with consumers via an e-commerce model. It was as simple model as that. We all know big basket. So Jivabhoomi is like mini basket, right? So connecting the two sides of the coins on a platform. And that's when we realized that we don't know enough about our own supply chains because we had grown slightly bigger than what we thought we would, which is when we started building a tech platform essentially to digitize the entire supply chain, both at the pre-harvest and the post-harvest side, so that we could go back and communicate effectively, convincingly to our consumers why the food they were buying from Jivabhoomi is good for them and good for planet. When we built the platform out, in fact, we have one of the participants as well on this call, which is Aruna. Thanks to her, Aruna from IFHD. We would fondly remember her forever because she was the first one that we met in a forum where we were talking about it. And she said, look, you guys haven't solved this problem just for yourself. Looks like you've solved it for the larger supply chains. It's not just Jivabhoomi's problem alone. It's a larger food and agriculture problem that could be solved, which was our first, which is when we thought, why don't we try and implement the solution for other customers who are in the similar business as well? One, obviously, to learn from others' experience and then mature the product. So that's when we started deploying, implementing what we had built for ourselves in Jivabhoomi to a few other organizations, and IFST was one of our early customers. We still continue to work with them very closely. And few months later is when we spun out of Jivabhoomi as a separate entity, and that's the genesis of TraceX. While TraceX started with just digitizing a paddy value chain back in one of these districts here in Karnataka, today we have over 30 customers that are paying to use our software across different value chains, including fruits and vegetables, livestock, dairy, and so on and so forth, which the team will talk about it a little more. Manu, the next slide. Yeah. Right. So essentially what we're looking to solve at TraceX is a problem that has existed and a lot of folks have tried to solve it, which is that of traceability. We've not invented the word traceability. We didn't invent the concept of traceability. That always existed. But what we are trying to do at TraceX passionately is to build credibility to the traceability of the supply chain data, provide better visibility and help organizations build better trust with their consumers, so that there is a connected supply chain is very well established, which essentially stands up to verify the claims that organizations make. Not just that, it's about improving the operational efficiency, meeting the regulatory compliances, food safety compliances, and so on and so forth, is what our application essentially does. I'll pause here and let Manu continue from here. Thank you so much. I'll come back towards the end of the presentation and discuss with you our next plans. Over to you, Manu. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivasa. Thank you, Parmesh, for the initial introduction. So we can go to the next slide, Vivek. So I think Shivasa touched upon very briefly about what is TraceX, and so what does it mean, right? I mean, what does it mean to have a connected supply chain? So you talked about being supply chain, being transparent. I think what we are looking at is solving some of the key problems which is plaguing the supply chain industry. We're talking about food safety measures, which takes hours and dollars of money. We were talking about compliance auditing, which takes a lot of paper trail and documentation. We're talking about food recalls, which are costly for the companies. We're talking about food wastage, which is a menace to the planet, and where we already have more than half of the world hungry. Can we afford all this in the centuries to come, right? So I think this is a technology that we are trying to say where we can ensure food safety and security with minimum interactions. We can get the compliance management certification with the data all in place, from a point of not being the sustainable supply chain to going into carbon crediting, rewarding the farmer for the right practices, and so on and so forth. This is a breadth of what effective connected supply chain can bring in, and that is what we are going to discuss further. Vivek, can we go to the next slide? But as we know, I think we all want a connected supply chain. We all want a transparent, traceable supply chain. But the challenges are many, right? I mean, if you are considering a domestic market, we are talking about an acreage per farmer, which is very less than, let's say, 2.5 acres, and we are talking about getting data in the most undigitized form of undigitized area of the business, right? So pre-harvest, we hardly have any data of the farmer. We hardly have any way to track and comply for food safety regulations. So in this, when the data is fragmented, when there is smallholder farmers, how can we achieve this traceability? Like Shivatsa said, that traceability has always been there. What is that TraceX has done differently in terms of achieving the connected supply chain despite the challenges with the existing farmers and existing compliance issues at the farm level? Let's go to the next slide. What we've seen, what we've done here is a very interesting thing. We spoke about, Shri highlighted a little bit about the blockchain network, which we will talk about it now. We've got each stakeholder of the supply chain, starting from the farmer, producer, processor, till the end consumer, onto one blockchain network, where all of these people can transact the information, and there is a single source of truth from farm to fork. Farmers can add the data about their soil quality, the package of practices that are followed at the soil level, pest management, fertilizer management, disease management, so on, data from the farmers pre-harvest side of things. From the producer, what are they doing after the produce is coming to the factory gate? What are the processing? Are they grading, sorting, washing? What are the different steps that are followed? And from there, how is the material being moved? Food is a perishable commodity. A lot of food wastage happens in the logistics side of things as well. So how is it moved? Is there a cold facility, cold room facility, or a reefer facility for the transport? And finally, from the buyer to the distributor, maybe it is getting more processed into a finished good, which is coming to the end consumer, right? So all of these data by independent parties are getting into an immutable ledger called as blockchain. Shri, you would want to add any points here on the technology itself?
Sure, Manu. Yeah, the whole idea for us was always to build, solve the problem in a different way, like we said before. And originally, the problem of traceability was being solved in isolation. That's how the ERP systems existed. That's how a lot of procurement systems, quality systems existed. But the approach that we've taken is to build it like a network where every participant is connected with one another. They're able to extend the boundaries of supply chain, their own supply chain with others in the ecosystem. The idea is to see, can we make the data accessible to everyone else in the supply chain more democratically than what it has happened in the past. That's how we're building it. So every participating organization is an entity that's connected with others. They choose to they decide what data they want to share it with the external world in a connected fashion. So it's all about the network that we're building at the end of the day. Sure.
Correct. Thank you so much, Shrivatsa. So I think the point of decentralization, where the power is not with one entity, it is distributed across the entities, and each of them are qualifying a single product, which means a series of truths going towards the end consumer. Yes, we can go to the next slide. Shrivatsa just highlighted about the value chains that we are covering. I mean, of course, we started off with agri-produce for only traceability for agri value chains, but we have gone beyond, and we are doing traceability for dairy, seafood, meat, agri inputs, so on and so forth. And Brigu will speak about a few of the use cases, which will be very interesting. What we've also done as a part of the product is we are having our own value chain digitization software, where we can record the pre-harvest and post-harvest details, leading to traceability, because without data we cannot have traceability, right? So the other interesting thing that we've done is we can integrate with existing digital infrastructure. If there is an ERP of an existing business, or if they have a different farm management solution, we can integrate with them, we can collect the data, and there can be the complete digitization, right? Next slide. So the two important things that we are trying to solve, I think broadly, where I summarized into compliance, consumer trust, and so on and so forth, it lies in two things. One is internal provenance. Our clients are mid to large enterprises, contract farming units, export houses. They use our solution for getting supply chain efficiency, optimizing their product recalls, reducing wastage. Next slide. There are few brands, there are few companies who are also using our solution from a consumer standpoint. Can I tell the story of my product via a simple QR code, leading the entire, showing the entire journey from the of the product from farm to fork? Yes, it is possible. This is the additional trust that the brands can leverage because of traceability today, and people can make a very conscious choice of going and buying a sustainable traceable product with the help of this QR code, right? The next slide. What we have done so far, I think Shivasa highlighted about this. Founded in 2019, in 2 years, we have actually gone up to the 30 users across the 4 industries. As I said, the enterprise where we have Olam, where we have Nitin and Olam, MTR, ITC. We have brands like Milk Mantra, Slay, Go Desi. We have companies from an international belt, CanSol, who are actually providing traceability for a for ashwagandha and turmeric, which is imported from India to Europe, and finally it is sold as a finished good in Europe. We also work with the governments. We work with government of Telangana and government of Kerala for banana and seed traceability respectively. And I think Brigu will touch upon these things. I will hand over the mic to Brigu. Brigu, over to you.
Thank you, Manu. And also thank you, Parmesh, as well as Vivek, for organizing this and bringing us within the World Bank Virtual Accelerator Incubation Center, if I may. Now, I probably have got the most interesting part because I'm going to be talking about what we have done in terms of work. The proof of the pudding is in the pie and in eating it. So some of the use cases that I want to share with you, this is going to be a very interesting start. This talks about McDonald's, the story of McDonald's, and many ingredients that go into it. The specific one that's up for today is lettuce. Now, one of our earliest customers, Green Earth, still associated with us, has been offering lettuce in various diced and sliced fashions across to McDonald's. So the next time you eat a burger from McDonald's, you know where the lettuce is coming from. The TraceX platform is being used by Green Earth right from sapling distribution. They work with about 200 farmers and across 250 acres today. Right from sapling distribution, they also share agronomy, package of practices with the farmers, monitor that. The tracking is done right through the mobile application that we provide. And during the time of harvest, Green Earth is there to offtake the produce and bring it down to the warehouses where the post-harvest operations take place. Eventually, all of this goes across to the McDonald's warehouses, spread across, and this lands in your burger. The next one that we have is MTR. This is one of the most famous brands in India when it comes to spices and condiments. This is specifically related to a breed of chili. MTR is very famous for value-added spices and condiments. So this particular chili is ground into a powder and is sold as a finished good to consumers. MTR has always been very clear about its sustainability goals, and one of them is to ensure there is as minimal aflatoxin in their chilies and to ensure sustainable production. They work with about 1,000 farmers, and we have a long-term contract with them. The other initiative that they want to closely be associated with is with farmers when they talk about trying to bring in financial inclusion and also ensure that there is sustainability on the farmer side. We've got the dairy value chain where we work with Milk Mantra on the Eastern Seaboard. The idea here was to ensure that the milk that is going across in packets to the consumer, they're able to scan the QR code and see the journey of the milk. Nowadays, the consumers are very clear about the kind of milk that is coming in, which includes grass-fed cows as well as open pasture cows. Milk Mantra is at the forefront of this, and along with milk, they also offer a lot of other dairy products. So once you scan the QR code on your mobile phone as a consumer, you're able to look at the complete journey, and that ensures that there's traceability for every dairy product that you eat. Coffee is actually one of the most craved beverages around the world. It also is an ingredient which, or rather a product which demands good value, a good premium, and consumers are very much inclined to pay a premium for the product. We work with Slay Coffee as well as Humble Bean through TechnoServe. TechnoServe is able to source coffee beans from various plantations, and Slay would like to show the journey of the coffee through its roasting and grinding process, eventually reaching the customer's cup. So from bean to cup traceability, a consumer, when he has his next cup of coffee, is able to view what he's actually looking at. Moving on to the seed supply chain. When we talk about seeds, this is an interesting use case because we've been working with the University of Research and Development in one of the states on the eastern seaboard, as well as the state agricultural department. The key thing here was to ensure that the seeds that are reaching the farmers are not counterfeit, have gone through its breeding programs, and the DNA and the genome has been mapped. Ensuring that the quality and quantity that is expected after each harvest is met. So the various stakeholders in this value chain that would be including the state agri department, the certification agencies, the laboratories involved in the certification of the seeds, the private seed breeding companies, and eventually the farmers. So all these stakeholders in this value chain are able to understand the quality of seeds that are coming in, and ensure that the production is meeting the targets. At this point, it's my pleasure to invite Nitin, who has been our well-wisher and champion for TraceX from Olam, to share his experiences and his journey with us. Let me just invite Nitin to come on board. Nitin, are you there?
And thanks to the TraceX team and the complete World Bank team for giving me this opportunity to share my views and thoughts on our association with TraceX. But prior to that, I would just like to give you a broad understanding about this whole sector, because I feel today the biggest threat to mankind is climate change and the geopolitical factors. So unfortunately, we can't do much about geopolitical factors the way things are progressing in Russia, Ukraine, and moving forward, it could be China, Taiwan as well. But as far as climate change is there, I think that is one area where we all should come together and see that how best we can do to protect the climate. The world population is expected to reach 10 billion by 2050 if we go by the numbers, and India's population is going to be close to 2 billion by 2050. And if we have to feed that population, the overall food production has to be doubled. But unfortunately, the land resources are finite, and the only way to feed the population will be to increase the productivity. But what is happening is that because of this climate change, instead of the production getting increased, it is actually going in the negative direction. And recent example of it, which is happening in India today, see, the government is very positive that India could be the food supplier to the world right now. And we are very positive that India could be the largest exporter of wheat, considering that Ukraine and Russia, which accounts to 1/3 of the total wheat exports, are currently not in the market because of the current situation over there. So it has thrown a very different kind of opportunity for a country like India to start exporting wheat to the rest of the world. And if we talk about today, India has got a potential to cater to more than 20-30 million tons of wheat to the different parts of the world. But in the last 15-20 days, the way climate change we have seen because of the intense heat wave which is happening in the northern part of India, it is impacting the yields very significantly as far as the wheat is there. And we are clearly seeing that there could be a drop of 10 to 15% in the overall wheat production. So if that happens, that could be a big bottleneck in the bull run of India's wheat exports to the rest of the world. So that is one clear-cut example that how climate change is impacting the overall food chain. And clearly we are seeing that because of these factors, the supply chains are getting disrupted and economies are becoming more and more vulnerable. But on the other side, if I talk about agriculture, see, agriculture traditionally in India, it happens in a very, very raw form. If you talk about rice, so rice is grown in a flooded field. And once you apply chemicals or fertilizer into the field under anaerobic conditions, so it releases methane gas. And methane gas is one of the biggest contributor of greenhouse gases. Uh, uh, so 70% of man-made contributor to climate change is methane gas, and unfortunately out of that 70% is contributed by agriculture, and out of that 70% is contributed by rice. So that's the irony of it, that on one side we are talking about that because of climate change the agriculture is getting negatively impacted, but on the other side the way agriculture is being done in the country or across the globe, it is causing the climate change. And I think that's where we all need to get up and start seeing that how can we start building a robust supply chain so that wherein there is an end-to-end connectivity between the farmers and the end consumers. And that's where Olam decided, I'll just quote one example, that how in Olam India we decided to start doing an agriculture in a very sustainable way, and we call it as reimagine global agriculture. So we have started thinking that let's start growing rice in a way so that it is not only impacting positively to the environment, but to the societies who are associated with it. And definitely at the end of the day, farmers' livelihood should get improved. And that's how we started this sustainable rice platform in the year 2019 in northern part of India, wherein we tied up with Ministry of Rural Development, which is NRLM, National Rural Livelihood Mission. And through NRLM, we tied up with Krishi Sakhis, who are the women entrepreneurs. We trained them to impart trainings to the farmers, and in turn, they were providing all kind of required training to the farmers. So they were one part of this whole project. The second part was IFC. IFC was not only our funding partner, but they were doing the water impact assessment also, because under this project, we decided that we'll do 10 to 15. Sorry, I think somebody's mic is open.
Please mute yourself. Nitin, please go ahead.
Sure. So IFC is the second partner, wherein they are doing the water impact assessment also, and through which we are ensuring that 10 to 15% of water saving should be done, because at the end of the day, rice is a water guzzling crop. The third is about Bayer Crop Science, who are developing a customized package for us in terms of providing right kind of chemicals and pesticides, because whatever rice we are growing right now, it is for the developed markets like Europe and US. And when we talk about those consumers and the customers, they are very particular in terms of their eating habits. So there are 270 chemical parameters which are to be tested before any rice has to be shipped to those markets. And then lastly, but very importantly, at the right point of time, we came in contact with the TraceX team over there. And that's how we came to know that TraceX is a new generation digital supply chain solution which provide transparent, connected, and traceable supply chain solutions through blockchain technology. And we could not have met Srivatsa and Anil at a better point of time. It was the year 2020 when the whole world was started reeling under COVID, and we were not able to travel to the respective farming areas, and we were not in a position to talk to the farmers. And that's where we came across this platform, which provided us an end-to-end traceable solution for our complete supply chain solution. So right from the farmer's registration to all the packaging practices which are to be getting captured are a part of this solution. And not only that, once harvesting is done and the final produce is coming to our factory. So to that extent, we are ensuring that the complete traceability is maintained. And moving forward, we are planning to take it to the next level, wherein the consumer in Europe and US market, once they will buy this produce and through QR code mechanism, once they scan the QR code, they will come to know that from which state in India, from which district, and from which particular farmer the final produce has come. And that's how we have realized also, especially in this Gen Z. So they are very particular in terms of the food which they are eating should be safe, healthy, and hygienic. And they are very cautious that the complete traceability should be a part of it. So that's how this platform is giving us that kind of complete solution for that, which is not only just connecting us with the farmers, but providing a complete end-to-end solution till the consumers level. So it has helped us in building the new markets and whatever existing markets are there, we are trying to create more and more stickiness with the farmers. And if we talk about, especially from the farmer's point of view, so today what is happening is it is helping us in developing the complete P&L for the farmers. So when we say P&L, so all the farmers' cost, right from the sowing till harvesting, is getting captured on this platform. And once we provide a price to the farmer, see what happens is that farmers are getting benefited in multiple ways. One, at the beginning of the season, they know that Olam is there to buy their produce. They know that whenever they want to sell their produce, Olam will be there to buy it at a market price. So if any farmer feels that they can sell their produce even at a later stage because they feel that prices might go up, they are free to sell it even at a later stage also. And third, we are providing a premium to the farmers over and above the market price. So all those things are getting captured in this particular platform, and that's giving a complete P&L to the farmer, that how much cost a farmer has incurred during this whole process of right from sowing till harvesting, and what is the end revenue a farmer has generated over a period of time. And I mean, I'm very proud and happy to say that because of this digital supply chain solution, we have scaled up this program to more than 10,000 acres of area within a span of only 2 years. And in terms of our stickiness with the farmers, more than 80% of the farmers are continued to associated with us. And in fact, because of word of mouth publicity, we are able to scale it up to different regions in northern India also. So that's how, I mean, this is just one example. We as Olam are doing the similar kind of activities in cocoa. So cocoa, if I have to give just one example, so 80% of the cocoa gets produced in IVC and Ghana, and Olam participates 90% of the total cocoa's world production. So once cocoa get harvested at those origins in Ghana and IVC, it comes to the port. From there, it comes to Singapore, wherein we have our processing facility. We convert that cocoa into cocoa butter and cocoa powder. Then it comes to countries like India, and wherein we do the local distribution of it. So till the time it gets originated and finally it's sold to the final consumer. So the complete traceability is getting maintained in this whole supply chain. So that's how Olam over a period of time has understood the importance of traceable, sustainable supply chain solutions. And this is just one or two examples which I've just quoted, but I think we have a long way to go. We have already come a long way, but as an organization, as partners with TraceX, we have a long way to go. So that's where I would like to rest my case.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nitin. You've always been a big proponent for us. I will now invite Srivatsa to come back and give us some view about how where we're going from a TraceX perspective.
Thanks, Prabhu. And Nitin, again, thank you so much for being very kind with your words always and gloriously explaining our relationship. Equally excited to be partnering with Olam. It's just been a great learning experience for us. With that, I must say that our future looks very, very bright, especially having just closed a pre-series A fund now from one of the best investors that you could raise money in India, which is from NAB Venture, which is an offshoot from NABARD. We're very, very positive about what lies ahead of us. Largely gives a great financial strength for us to go out there and build founder minus teams, which we think is very, very important at this point in time. And coming back into the roadmap of the organization itself, though we started off with agriculture, produce as the core focus, our understanding of the whole food and agriculture has evolved significantly over the last 3 years. And the idea for us is to position ourselves as the thought leaders in the space of supply chain traceability is focused on agri and food, at least in the near term, I would say. And while most of the supply chains, agri-food supply chains, are moving towards building sustainability across their networks, the idea is to, like we were talking about earlier, the idea is to see how we can build a networked, connected food ecosystem, right from farmers all the way till consumers. I think that's something is a huge global opportunity for us to work towards. That eventually leads to how can we capitalize on the soil carbon, as they say, could soil carbon be the weapon for farmers, right? So we're damn good at capturing environmental initiatives at the ground level. So could we then take it to the next level, link it up with NFTs and Web3 and technologies like that, just simply to put together the tracking of environmental initiatives for carbon sequestration, then providing tools for measuring the sequestered carbon, then providing tools and technologies for the regulators and the certifying agencies to verify the authenticity of the carbon on the platform, and obviously minting a token, and finally going up to listing the tokens on the open marketplaces or our own marketplace. So that's an initiative that's actually something that's in the stealth mode right now. We're working towards it, and soon you will see some announcements around that. And also while we're focusing on food and agriculture, we've now expanded our solution into other value chains, including dairy, which we talked about, livestock. We've got a huge project just recently, a direct-to-consumer brand that specializes in both seafood as well as livestock, going live very shortly with our solution. Then with NABARD's ecosystem, the idea is to see whether can we bring in a fintech angle to the entire ecosystem, so that the democratized data can lead to access to credit to the farmers. And obviously with Brigu leading our international expansion, the idea is to see and solve the similar problems across the globe. While our immediate focus is Europe and US, we strongly feel that the solution such as ours has global relevance, and that's what we are excited about. I'll pause here. Thanks again for hearing us, and Brigu, back to you for if there's anything else. Or back to Parmesh. So yeah.
Shivatsa, and thanks a lot to everyone in TraceX for really giving us, and Olam also, Nitin, to give us a bird's eye view of the range of things you are doing, solutions you are bringing in different space commodities. And so I would, because Adam, who is our global lead in IFC, has to leave a little bit earlier, so I would bring him in now. And please keep on posing your questions. There are some very interesting questions which have already come. So you have 5-6 more minutes to pose questions before I cluster them, together, and then pose them back to the TraceX panel again. And I have some questions of my own which I will add to that to see how we can take this now in terms of a future collaboration with the World Bank. And I'll discuss some ideas and get your reactions on that. Adam, over to you now. Adam, you have been listening to all the TraceX solutions. You have been, Olam is already our investee. The IFC Advisory Service is working with Olam already. So you are there as a part of what is happening on this initiative already. But please come up with your global perspective on how you see this solution and what you see as the future, looking at all the work which IFC is doing now. Over to you, Adam.
Sure. Thanks, Parmesh. And well, thanks especially to the TraceX team for that very engaging presentation. There's a couple of things that strike me when you go through the good work that you've done in India, and that is thinking about how this scales up, thinking about global market, and how you can leverage what you've been doing in India to capture interesting market opportunities outside of India. And so, of course, one of the obvious things that comes to mind are the supply chains for cocoa and coffee. So leveraging the experience that you've been building in India, especially on that front end. And, if you look at this globally, these are enormous market opportunities, right? So I don't want to say that coffee and cocoa represents all of agri-commodities, but each one of those value chains is over $100 billion when you look at it globally, right? And Olam is a front runner in terms of traceability, but if you look at the market as a whole for these supply chains, cocoa, coffee, there's no good data for exactly what percentage is traceable. I've seen some figures which might suggest it's around 50%, but the fact that the data is so fuzzy already suggests the need for greater transparency, greater data integrity. I mean, exactly the kind of thing that you're trying to address. So when you consider, the size of those markets, and that globally a good percentage, and perhaps something like half of them, are really in the initial stages of traceability, that opportunity is big. But as much as, and I don't want to belittle the amount of work that's been done by those big companies to get to the percentage traceability that they've gotten to now, but I think there's also a logic in saying that, you know, if some of squeezing out the traceability as you march towards 100%, that last 40%, the last 30%, the last 20%, I think these seem to be increasingly difficult. And when we look at where that problem lies, I think it's lying, if you look at the very long supply chain, at that interface between the smallholder farmer and that first level of aggregation. So for even those companies that are very complete supply chain managers and who really try and manage from upcountry all the way to end consumer, there's a number of them that still have a level of aggregation or collection in between. And that's, so that's the point that needs to be digitized. And the question is, partly the digitization itself won't pay for itself. And so I think when I look at what might be needed as you move into some of those spaces, it may be a partnership with other, with complementary activities or operations. So if we think of, for example, a payment to the end farmer, something that, in other words, partnering with these service providers who will also be effectively help pay for this service and its digitization. And I'll take a few moments to walk through some of the things that IFC has done in and around this space in terms of our investments, which I think illustrates some of the spaces that are covered and some of the spaces where there's still need for some development. And so what I'll explain first is, you know, IFC can invest on several different levels. And so, for example, if we're talking about the technology that's really driving some of the things that could support that last minute traceability, we make a lot of those investments through funds. And in this context, we've invested in a fund, for example, where the portfolio includes a company that's working on the digitization of grain quality, or another portfolio company there is connecting, it's software, basically software development, connecting then farm machinery and other farm implements in terms of data collection and obviously ultimately to optimize harvest. But these are, I think, creating a bit of a platform at that production end where there's so little digitization that are ultimately going to help support the type of record keeping that would be needed to bring a lot of these farmers onto a distributed ledger solution. We also invest then directly in some companies that are developing, for example, drone-based crop monitoring systems, where again, it's going to be able to digitize some of those production records, which is where it all starts in terms of trying to have a traceable system. And then the last part of IFC's business in and around the space is going to tend to be supporting the adoption and the rollout of technologies that are already existing. These are where we're working with established companies, and very often in the context of agribusiness, these are companies that are working in the first stages of processing agri-commodities, or they are working as supply chain managers across several of these segments. But in this space, you know, our clients have been facing this challenge of how to digitize. And here we've been working with a couple of these clients, so both lending to them and then putting together advisory programs, which, for example, in Kenya, one of our clients is a herb producer. It was a very, very simple, in some sense, greenhouse type operation, but given the nature of herbs, was relevant to have, and we talked before about food safety, was very, very relevant to have then that traceability element. And of course, in a system where there were no digitized records, the project then helped that company digitize its processes. We've also worked, for example, with a couple of our trading companies on rolling out digitization for smallholder farmers. And so those would be around, straightforward applications for digital finance. But what has been missing in a lot of those cases is they've been specific applications, but we're still looking for making that connection on that initial front end between the smallholder and that first level of aggregation. And I think that's the biggest, toughest nut to crack. So with that, I'll leave it to the next participants.
Thanks a lot, Adam. I think very rich insights. And you take a cross section of IFC clients, what's happening on that. But you also bring a fundamental question that, and there are a lot of questions coming on that front, the back end of the smallholder part. Everyone's asking the question, what's the value proposition there? What's going to happen? And I think I have a value proposition for you in that area, because we are now investing in almost 10 to 15,000 farmer producer companies all over the world. So I think that's doing aggregation. So if we had a platform, digital traceability platform, which is an enterprise-based platform for each of these farmer producer companies, we could solve some of that problem of individually approaching each farmer, and they could become your traceability kind of monitors and traceability enforcers. If we are able to develop a capacity issue in which you have an enterprise solution, it's like a SAP solution for enterprises. You need to create similar one for farmer producer companies. So ultimately, millions of farmers will be able to participate in traceability if you are able to bring that solution at that space. And we are also investing now in digitization of farmer digital registries and all. So if we can bring a layer of that there, then I think we solve some of those problems. We'll talk about that later on. And I'm glad that Nitin mentioned about NRLM. NRLM is one of the largest programs supported by the World Bank. And so I'm glad to see that there's a connection with the World Bank supported programs in terms of what Olam is doing with you also on that RISE platform as well. And I think there are more opportunities like that. Okay, so what I will do now, I'll pick some questions out of what people are asking. Some are clarification questions, which I think you could answer in the chat itself. But I will take more substantive questions, 3 or 4 clusters, and then ask you to come and respond to them. Whoever wants to come in and respond, I'll leave it to TraceX to talk about that. So the first part is, I think the value proposition to farmers, is your model currently business facing or farmer facing? And how does it become more farmer facing? Because World Bank wants to increase significantly the productivity, profitability of smallholders across, I think, 29 value chains. So what will be the value proposition which you will give to all the organizations which are farmer facing? And what will be the kind of product offering which will come at that end? Because your product is coming. Can you develop a product for which can go directly to producer companies and farmer organizations? Can you respond to that question a little bit, based on your experience till now?
Perfect. So I'll just take a dig at it, and maybe Shivatsa and Brigu can add. I think a very, very important question. I think a lot of people have asked, and I think you also mentioned about whether as a business model we are farmer facing and or business facing. And a lot of times the question that gets asked is who's going to pay the traceability cost, right? I think today, as we speak, I think we start from the businesses. So we, as a TraceX company, Olam is our client, and we indeed want to pass on the benefit to the farmers for following the best practices through the incentivization mechanism, which we are trying to do with some of the supply chains where there's a real intent from the businesses to elevate the farmers. And to your point, Parmesh, in terms of, let's say, having the farmers, building an application for FPOs, which is already in action. We are actually trying to mobilize. We recently did a project with Krishi Mangal, which was with Cisco and Social Alpha. We worked with 10,000 farmers in the maize value chain in Belgaum district, Karnataka, where we enabled all these farmers in 2 FPO clusters. Eventually, the produce, the traced produce, getting better market linkages, so on and so forth, increasing the overall potential for FPO to incentivize the farmers or give better inputs in terms of or at a subsidized cost, so on and so forth, so which can eventually reduce the cost. And I want to tell one thing which one of our clients said, and I'll pass on to Shivatsa or Brigo. So when we were working with a client called Wonderberry, who exports bananas to most of the Middle Eastern countries, he said very important thing. I think he said when we talked about the traceability as a cost for the farmer, he said, though today we are not able to see the premium in terms of the money that we are getting, the way we perceive traceability is from a point of reducing the cost. If I'm able to produce banana at 10 rupees, with traceability can I go at 8.59, this is where I draw my margins, and this is where a farmer can become more efficient in terms of his inputs and higher productivity. So that is an overall answer of how farmers can become can capitalize on this thing. And over to Shivatsa and Rigu to add.
Sure, Manu. A couple of points there. I don't believe that just one organization or one technology tool will steer the success for the smallholder farmers in the direction it must be. It invariably will have to be a consortium coming together and doing different bits and pieces, right? The agriculture is a very different, I'm sure there are so many more experts here. It's a very complex and very large, with a very long tail, so to say. Therefore, the interventions of technology must be definitely there in different bits, parts of the supply chain, but it's important to put a larger picture together. Just by digitizing a farmer's data, there's nothing that's one is going to be achieving. Maybe at the maximum, you give a digital technology to the farmer, help them with agronomy. But what are they going to do with it? What happens to the data that has been tracked? What happens to the produce that has been traced through the platform? So could we now bring in a market linkages platform, partner who could connect this, dots? Working backwards and working forwards. Then could we bring in someone who can lend across the value chain based on this data? We're working on an initiative with just a pilot initiative with about 400 farmers here in Karnataka, where could we leverage the data that's available through TraceX system and do value chain financing? Value chain financing right from the, providing inputs to the farmers all the way till the marketability. Could we help a farmer discover the power of carbon that they have sequestered with regenerative agriculture they're doing, the sustainable agriculture they're doing? I think this is how, and this is a classic example of our work with OLEM, our work with IFHT, our work with MTR, and so on and so forth. The consortium is what makes the farmer the winner. I would pause there, but that's my take on that question. Yeah.
Absolutely, good point. And I think that's what you see, that in Africa, in Kenya, we have a consortium of 24 startups. It's reached 1 million farmers in 3 years, because we are coming from the input side, soil testing side, the market access side, and also even Uberizing tractor access to smallholders. So there are a range of solutions which smallholder requires. Very complex, as you said rightly. And I think that's something which I wanted to understand a little better. How are you working with the dynamic agri-tech startup system in India? Because we have hosted a number of other people who have solutions in that space, including the financing space you are talking about. So what it takes and we are going to increasingly work on that consortium approach in India as well, and take geographies where we are working already with, say, 250,000, 300 large scale kind of programs where we are working there. So I want to understand what it will take you to join those consortiums. What is the kind of support required to join those consortiums to create this kind of holistic set of solutions for smallholders? So keep that thought at the back and ask you a couple of other questions from the side of it, because ultimately, I think NRLM is our large initiative, working with a lot of smallholders, on a range of value chains. We also are working with many state level programs in Assam, Jharkhand, Bihar and other places. We work with a lot of smallholder FPOs there in that. Even UP also, Devashish is on this call, basically, who is coordinating our programs in UP. So I think if we can build a value proposition around commodities and geography, which is sufficiently large scale and entice 3 to 4 key people to join that consortium, maybe we will see more transformation solutions coming up. So I want to ask you what takes, because every startup wants to do their own thing, and because you are driven by passion by that, and I can understand that also very clearly. But what it does take to create that consortium effect there, and are you going beyond Karnataka and going and working in other geographies there? So ask these 2 questions, please keep at the back of your mind. Now, people are asking questions about the cost of this a little bit, on what is this TraceX solution cost, and then people have said the digitization itself will pay for it and all that, and there can be a value proposition if we can build this into the market premiums and carbon credits and all that, because there's clearly a benefit flow and then there is clearly a cost flow. So please explain that if you were to roll out this solution, say in the rice or coffee value chain in another geography, what does it take? What are the investments required to make that investment, and what are the additional investments beyond the solutions you have created? Because does the software you have developed in India, will it work for Africa, or will you have to start it all over again? What are the kind of foundational costs and what are the additional costs to that? So just take that second point. The third point is about this people asking about the carbon part of it. Now, how will that work? And I think this is a very big area we just hosted Rabo for a session on voluntary carbon markets, and they are trying to develop a system for measurement there. So what is your vision about how will you work on this carbon market part in terms of your offering? So these 3 sets of questions, if you can come back to them, and then I'll take some others if we have more time.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the first and the third. I think I would want to start with the third because I'm excited about the carbon markets. Maybe I'll go with the reverse order, and then probably somebody else from our team will pitch in for the other thing. So, see, I think we've always, as TraceX, we are already following certain sustainable practices with respect to OLAM. There's already a lot of savings that's happening from a pesticide point of view. It's also a saving from a point of view of water. We're already impacting climate in different ways, right? Now there are two models that we're working. One definitely about how we are seeing the carbon. Let's say, for example, if we are able to do a sustainable supply chain, can the corporate or can the entity take the benefit of the carbon sequestered in the process, right? So can they get closer to their net zero goals or reduction in their carbon emissions in supply chains? That's point number one. The other thing that we are looking at from mobilizing the entire network model, where we are trying to build a carbon market or a network model, which is very very interesting in the way that it allows even an FPO. It can be a voluntary carbon market. It can be a registered government entity working on carbon projects to come on the platform, tokenize their carbon credit, which means there is a digital identity for every carbon credit that is sequestered, to the point that a person who is buying the credit can see what were the package of practices that were followed at the soil level, what was the soil carbon before and after, what was the baselining, every detail transparently available in the value chain. Eventually the buyer can trade this using tokens on a network. So it's a buyer and a seller. It's an Amazon, the word Amazon forest in terms of carbon here, it's Amazon for the carbon network and carbon credits, right? So that is also a model where eventually and finally we want the farmer to be benefited, either in terms of, let's say, we have a model, just to give an example of how farmer can benefit in different ways. Farmer following sustainable practices might get subsidized inputs from Bayers and Syngentas of the kinds, where these agri inputs and these big corporates can take the advantage of the carbon sequestered there. So in a way that there is an end-to-end benefit, there is a win-win situation at either end with respect to carbon in place. So we have multiple models that we're evolving on the carbon. I think it'll be interesting to see where we will stick and how we will help. But I think carbon is a space that we're all excited to work towards. I think I'll allow my team to answer the question number 1 and 2. Yeah.
I will take a stab at the consortium part of it, because this is something that I've been working on very closely in the past as well as currently. It's very important. The agriculture ecosystem, like somebody else mentioned earlier, is extremely complex, and there are several value chain players. Now, the only way agriculture can be seen as a business is when everybody starts to benefit, and that means going down to the farmer level as well. So for this to really work out in across the world, in the southern hemisphere, if you look at it, it's important to get in all the stakeholders, and that doesn't just mean the commodity players or the financial players or the input players, but it also means bringing in other ecosystems players like startups. For example, if we take the fintechs, if we take the drone companies, the IoT companies, etc. Now all of them are getting in data, which is very critical. When we started off with TraceX, the whole idea about having blockchain as our backend platform was to ensure that we are able to create a network of the various players, and ensure that there is passage of true information going right across. So if for example, if I were to take Nigeria, which is Nigeria and Kenya in Africa, which are the burgeoning economies who have adopted technology very, very deeply, both from for example, if you look at Kenya, there's M-Pesa already existing, but then there are several other players who have started to come up with indigenous solutions. Connecting with them and then connecting with somebody like a Hello Tractor to get in data that is coming in on the ground would become very beneficial to ensure that the farmers are benefiting with the right data that is coming in. They can make those decisions in terms of agronomy as well as production. That data is then flowing across to say an off-taker or a buyer who is understanding what the quality and quantity they can expect, and they can also share their own information over there. So FoodSign, which is our flagship platform, is going to sit in the center to ensure that there is easy passage of data and transactions. And that is why the consortium becomes very, very important. And this is something we have done very recently. I mean, forget about Africa. We're looking at Europe right now. We have a customer that we talked about earlier called Cansol, which is importing turmeric from India. It then goes across to an extrusion company, an extraction company. Once the extraction is done, it is then sent out in a liquid, highly concentrated liquid form or a powdered form to a manufacturing facility, which is then making it ready to market. Finally, it reaches the distribution agency. So the distribution agency is able to show the benefits of a plant-based health and wellness solution to their customers who are in the Bavarian region. So that's just one aspect of it. If you look at the meat sector or the livestock sector, for them, right from where the calving is taking place to the point where the calf is ready to market, and then it goes across to the abattoirs. From the abattoirs, it is going across to the production houses where they're doing value-added processes, and eventually reaching the distributor and the retail channel. If all of these players are able to come together, each player gets the benefit of working closely through a single platform. And I'll leave the next question to probably my colleagues over there, where we talk about being cost effective and what is the cost involved in traceability. Who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, very, very quickly. Our business model currently is B2B, B2B to F. We don't charge farmers directly. And we don't intend to do that in the near future as well. So we'll keep it a B2B model, because we do believe we will have to work with the businesses to organize the first mile or any intervention there. Typically, the implementations that involve smallholder farmers, typically our business model is per farmer per month. Depending on the volume of farmer, it could start with 250 farmers to 500 to 1,000 over. That's how we typically put the license fee. License could be monthly, quarterly, half yearly, yearly, depending on how our customers would like to pay. We are also very conscious about the fact that we need to distribute the cost of traceability across multiple partners. if essentially, if we are connecting a chain together, we'll give you an example. If you're working with TechnoServe, with smallholder farmers in the Valley of Araku for production of coffee, not all the platform costs must be borne by them. There is a organization like Slay Coffee or Humble Bean or Blue Tokai that's buying coffee, being on the same network, buying coffee from the upstream, who is also on the network, and then processing coffee with a processor which is based in Bangalore, who is also on the network. So rightfully, it has to be balanced so that the end of the day, the platform becomes affordable for everybody. So that's how we typically try to approach it. In fact, we have freemium models as well. In classic case where we want to bring in the Artiyas, who would want, firstly, we want participants, maximum number of participants into the chain, coming onto the chain. Therefore, Artiyas, for example, get to use certain part of the system free of cost. There is absolutely no price. So things like that. So that's what we're doing. The other experimentation that we're doing with brands is where there isn't necessarily the first mile access. We are doing blockchain transactions that it takes to build the commercial model. That's what we're looking at. So I think that was the question, if I'm not mistaken. So if I've missed out anything on commercial model, happy to take them, but I'll pause there. Yeah.
And just one point I would want to add, I think just to simplify from what Shivasa was trying to say, we have two models where we go and charge the businesses and enterprises either per farmer per acre, or we have a blockchain transaction based model where we are going to price the company on the number of blockchain transactions that it takes for the entire sustainable supply chain. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Very interesting. So I think there are you answered most of the questions. I think we'll never end the discussion here, but we will definitely look at the future part of it. So there are some other questions people have, more clarification questions on the blockchain protocol, and you can answer those questions directly in the chat, because I think they are of interest to only the person who is asking the question, and then others may not have generic interest in that. So blockchain protocol, is an independent entity, verify the traceability. Those are questions related with the blockchain technology per se. So if you can just take that set of questions on the technology protocol you have, and then the verification protocol you have, and just briefly answer that, and then I'll take one more question after that. Yeah, please go ahead.
By the way, Parmesh, we are happy to actually take a note of all the questions and respond back formally in a document. If we would be happy if you
because we also send the whole chat history and questions as part of the recording. That's it, because I find that if we miss out on that, then we have missed out on a significant part of the conversation. So I think if you can later on also look at the chat and then respond to some of the questions, that the complete record is created, whereby the participants will then get answers to that question, and they don't feel that in the virtual format we just can't allow everyone to ask questions in an open-ended way. So we are a little bit moderating it, but thanks for the offer, and I think it will be good for you to take
interesting questions. Very interesting question. We would as much love to answer them. Very quickly on blockchain protocol, we use a price.
Also cover about, I think there's a lot of questions about data security. I think this gets asked a lot of times. I think you can combine both of them when you're answering this and talk about data security as well. Yeah.
So we are currently running on a private permission blockchain called Hyperledger Fabric, so we're building it out like a network. Like I said, we are running on the latest version. On one side, we have a digitization application, which is Android for offline first Android multilingual application, which is used to feed the data into the application. Then we have whole lot of functionalities available on the web-based application to ensure the post-harvest journey of the produce is tracked. Eventually, all of them writing into the ledger. Ledger itself has a governing council that is established. Currently, we are the governing council. We are building non-conflicting governing council members. We are talking to various organizations who could actually come and sit on top of our network and independently govern how the rules of the game are set and executed. That's where we are. And in terms of data security. Anyone who subscribes on our SaaS platform, they own the data. We have legal agreements as well that we sign. It's completely owned by them. There are regular, security, and our entire data is on AWS right now, which is where we run our, blockchain. So happy to expand on those questions in our response.
Okay, so I think good response, and I think we get, because we have done about 4 or 5 blockchain presentations in this series. And I think we will send you all those presentations in a pack so that you can look at where does this stack up with respect to them. But I think they were early days of blockchain. I think you guys are further ahead in terms of the actual applications, in terms of the specific applications, results clearly shown there. Now, I just want to ask you a question, because World Bank is a scale institution. We are not a pilot. We pick up these ideas and we are seeing for how do we take them to scale. So one of the things we talked about was that we could look at all the programs with producer companies, and they are already linked. The producer companies are linked with market players. But I think if we are able to build that digitized, value chain integration with all the people who are buying commodities from millions of farmers in the World Bank or network, farmer network, it would be a good thing to look at whether this solution can become a much more a platform solution. So I call them more, the consortium solutions are more platform solutions as opposed to point solutions, basically.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of ingredients you have are more platform solutions because you are working end to end. So I want to ask you that in order for you to reach scale, what's your scale thinking? I just want to ask this question. I ask this question to every innovator right now because I'm looking at whether we can help you scale what you are trying to do, and we can also scale what we are trying to do for this very important part of traceable. What percentage of our portfolio becomes good food quality, good traceability, transparency of supply chain. That's how I'm looking at it. Currently, I don't think we have even data about how much is there, basically, because no one monitors this part actively, basically. As Adam also said, the numbers are floating, and sometimes companies are themselves ESG reporting, and there are doubts about their own ESG reporting also. In that sense, no one believes still the figures which companies are giving in the public disclosures and things like that. So if we have to go, you have to go to scale.
Correct.
What would be your recommendations to us on how we could work together to go to scale? Number one, very specific question I'm asking. You know what World Bank does? We organize farmers, we provide a lot of services, we help the governments to create policies to help the farmers. We also are working with technology startups and all to provide services there and create an innovation ecosystem around farmers. So how would you work operationally with us in India, Africa, and other regions? So how would you go about it if you were giving a value proposition? Because in the next meeting, we will bring in about 18 investment leaders in the World Bank to talk to you. And then you have to come with very specific, they will ask you questions about their own countries. We will give you all the information, what we have about those projects. So give me now some sense of what is your scale aspiration? Where are you going in terms of scale? And what are the strategies you are going to use? And then talk about the World Bank part in that.
Awesome. So I think I was very excited when you said about the number of FPOs. So one thing I'll tell Parmesh today, that give us all. I think we are ready because the point is the way we have built. I think Brigu touched upon a little bit of blockchain itself as a network, where I'll answer this question, including one of the questions where how can you interplay with other technology startups? That's where this platform connection comes, where we can integrate with a soil testing company, we can integrate with the technology which is measuring the quality of produce, so on and so forth. All the players can come onto one platform. With respect to scale, I think because we've built a very configurable system, I think from the package of practices standpoint of view, I don't see a lot of variations between the continents, and I think we'll be able to configure the product very soon, at least at the pre-harvest level for an agri-produce, it can be done. And I mean, we have the help of resource institutions. I think Aruna is with us here, who can help us scale in India and outside. We will be able to find implementation partners to do this at scale. I think we've been able to do Krishi Mangal with 10,000 farmers just by having the same team. We have not added one single person on our team to be able to get 10,000 farmers on board in 3 months, right? So I think similarly, I think we'll be able to do a lot more scale given the product configurability, interoperability, integration with the digital infrastructure, and with the implementation partners. That's how we plan to scale. Srivatsa and Brigo, if you want to.
Yeah, a couple of points there. I definitely believe scale can only come with collaboration. Definitely, and one of the points that we always are very conscious about is different partners in a consortium are going after the same farmers data, same farmers Aadhaar numbers, same farmers geomapping data, same farmers crop data, right? 10 of us are going together and asking the same question. I think it's very, very important to create that common layer, which is where the most of the time consuming, which stops us from scaling, is initial digitization and acquisition of that data, which does not change all that often. Right, only data that really changes is season to season. I think that baselining is where I think must be done with a consortium of partners. And for example, we are looking to just to give you a sense, in the next 3 to 5 months, we are looking to digitize about 4 lakh hectares of land with working with one of the customers in the carbon sequestration area. Right, we in the next 3 to 5 years, we want to at least be looking at credible 5 million. There's no point in talking about millions and millions of data, and then we can't stand by what is the credibility of that data, right? So at least 5 million farmers data, which could be credible, which can be leveraged by everybody in the ecosystem. That type of scale is what we are sort of thinking about on the smallholder farmer side, and with NABARD, our access to that ecosystem is hopefully going to get better, and then we have larger access to the data. That's and partnerships, definitely we would want to do it with resource institutions that are doing the work out there on the field, being right in front of the farmers, and that's the way to scale is what we do think, Parmesh. I don't know if it answers your question broadly, partly, but yeah, that's what we're thinking through.
So I'll take a stab at the second part of the question, which Parmesh asked. How do we work with World Bank to look at the scalability aspect? Now, consortium interoperability itself is a very good example of scalability, and World Bank does that very well across value chains across the world. Because of the simple fact that we've been built on blockchain, we're built on a network infrastructure, architecture, that basically means that for us to get into a value chain and then digitize as well as create the journey, that is itself is our goal. So if we were to take up a specific value chain that World Bank is funding or is operating, let's say for the sake of this discussion, we look at, say, the rice value chain in Nigeria, in West Africa, for example, or the cocoa value chain in West Africa, having all those players in the same consortium, because of the simple fact that farmers in West Africa and the off-takers in West Africa are quite disconnected. There's a lot of there are a lot of middlemen in the picture, which basically means that the farmer doesn't get the actual benefit. So if we can create that ecosystem, become part of the ecosystem over there that is being funded by World Bank, it would make a lot of sense to look at scalability, because World Bank already has several players in the ecosystem. For us to bring all of them together through a single platform, that's the way to look at scalability. I hope that answers a bit or parts of all of the question.
Definitely. I think it's a good point, and I also like what Arun has just put in there in the chat. And so we have to find the existing collaborators you have, and then see whether we can work jointly with them to go to scale on whatever you are doing on X. How does that go to 3X, and what are the ways we can work on facilitating? The World Bank does a lot of convening. We have a convening power, which we can use to really bring these people together. And that's what's happened in Kenya now. Almost 26 startups, a lot of technology companies, everyone is on one platform. because we are obsessed with delivering high quality services, profits, and production to smallholder farmers. So I think if we have organizations like IFHT with whom you have worked earlier, Olam you worked with earlier, and we could convene your existing partners and then probably introduce you to some new partners whom we are working with, and then see where we can go to scale both within India and in other geographies eventually. And I think, and a lot of new programs. See, initially, the World Bank investments were very data, or by lack of better word, were data ignorant, the way they were designed in the beginning. So that's what we are changing. We're changing every investment to include data and digital as part of the initial investment itself. Almost 5 to 10% of our investment in physical and other things would now be on data and digital. And that is what will change the configuration, because that if investment will come, then a lot of private sector can come in and come with their solutions and plug that. And what I think what just now Shivatsa said, we just finished a study in Africa. We found that all the startups were spending 80% resources and time on collecting data, and only 10-15% time on products and services, and only 5% on scale. So we were absolutely, everyone was stuck at this 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 farmers, and we never going to scale. So that's what we are doing now. We're investing in the data platform as a public good, as what Srivastava was saying. And once you have that public good, then a lot of people can plug and play with that data and then spend 80% time, reverse the pyramid, spend more time on developing products and services and going to scale. So I think we will try to work with you on working on some foundational investments which will allow you to scale faster, basically. And we will have a conversation with you, much more detailed conversation, but with specific investment teams, which will then ask you specific questions. You will answer specific questions and probably move to a second protocol, which will be more operational as we go forward. Because we don't do these webinars only for learning. We learn, absolutely. Everyone has to learn, because you are seeing a lot of people learning from you, saying, can we do this in medicinal plants? So there's a lot of networking effect, which is already there in this webinar. But I think our interest will be to see whether we can take these solutions jointly between IFC and us to a higher scale. And I really appreciate you coming and talking to us all that and spending so much time with us on this solution and really giving us a feel of what's on offer. And we are committed to working actively with you going forward. And so we will also approach IFHD and Olam also on how we can work in a more collaborative way with them and you together as well. And thank you very much. I also really want to thank all the participants also for being actively there. And we have one metrics about mortality rate and survival rate, because how many people we start with, how many people we end up. The number is 85% today. So I think it's one of the best performances. Whoever has stayed back, and that's a testimony to the way you guys have done well. And thank you very much again to all of you for this exciting webinar. Thanks to the audience. And the next one is on Nigeria. Please look for this space. The announcement is going to go out today. We will have Bhavan Gona and two others. This is the one we have, where there's a commodity exchange being set up in Nigeria using digital technology. So we will really discuss with another set of innovators on 5th. And please join in at that stage. And thanks a lot for everyone to do it. And thanks a lot, Vivek, for really organizing this one. Thank you very much, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Parmesh. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate this.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Parmesh.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Vivek. Parmesh, thank you. Cheers.